tuning in to this episode of The Bridge Meets, where we'll be talking to various stakeholders what it's like to live and work in Rwanda. Today, we're speaking to Uwayo Alain Fabrice, the co-founder of Nile Farms. Nile Farms is an agri-tech company that empowers farmers through increased productivity using affordable, smart irrigation services in Rwanda. Um, for those joining us later in the program, please leave your questions in the chat box. For now, good evening, Fabrice. Thank you for taking this time to join us today. Could you please tell us a little bit about your career journey so far and what inspired you to start Nile Farms?
Thank you very much. So, like I said, my name is Fabrice. So I'm a co-founder and managing director of Nile Farms, an agri-tech company that focuses on providing smart solutions for farmers that includes access to irrigation services, access to inputs, and the other services the farmers need, such as like mechanization. So I started my career in agriculture in 2015 as I was part of Rwanda RIAF. People who've been in Rwanda, I think they know RIAF. So it's a Rwanda Youth in Agriculture Forum. So where you get exposed to what's the ecosystem look like of agriculture, the trends, the problem, the challenges, and the opportunities that is in a sector. And then I met my co-founders in African Leadership University, where we started to do now a deep bit research of the problems that may need the immediate solution, and those solutions that we can be able to provide. So that's when now we came up with the main challenge on the production level, where like we see the farmers, especially those into horticulture, face the accessibility of inputs, lack of irrigations, and therefore like they have a low productivity. So then we ventured into the production, on-farm production, by providing a solution that tackles those two challenges: access to inputs and also the limitation to access irrigation services. I can't hear you.
Sorry, I was muted.
Okay, yeah.
I didn't realize I was muted. Before we get into maybe the specifics about Nile Farms and irrigation, maybe we can talk a little bit about, you said RYAF, the Youth Forum. Maybe you can tell us, you said like you said it was very valuable for you to participate in that. Why did you get into that? Why did you seek it out? What did you learn from that, and how was it useful to you?
I think LIAF is a great platform for those who wants to enter into the ecosystem of agriculture and agribusiness as a whole in Rwanda, because it puts together all the stakeholders. So it is it's an institution that reports direct to the Minister of Agriculture. So you find out there is in ecosystem there are farmers and there are producers, and they are like everybody you may need in the sector. They are putting together to form like a forum where they gather, and then the connections. For example, there was a time I wanted to visit the farmers who are into commercial farming in Nyagatare. So you find out in LIAF, there is actually a representative of LIAF in Nyagatare. So it means they help you to access the broader network of the players in the entire ecosystem.
So is this how you sort of got to really understand the problem of irrigation in our community? Or
yes.
Were you already aware of this before you joined RIA?
So I was aware of the problem, but I wasn't aware of the magnitude of the problem. So, there is a challenge of irrigation, but at what extent? And what is the alternative? What are the solutions that has been already implemented? Why are they not performing? And so Leah helped me to better have a better understanding of the problem. And in real time, because now you are interacting with the actual farmers who face those problems. It's not like a theoretical of like doing the primary research, which I have done before, like reading articles, reading the research that has been written about the irrigation challenge. But now you are going to the field to see what the problem look like on the field.
And I'm very curious how you sort of, it's always very interesting to learn about how maybe entrepreneurs kind of like zero in and zoom in on the real challenge that people are facing, and then come up with like solutions to help everybody out and make their lives a little bit easier. So I'm just curious, like for the young entrepreneurs who will inevitably watch this video, who are interested in agriculture, like I'm curious how you were able to like spot the problem, because I imagine that it's more, the problems facing farmers in Rwanda is more than just irrigation. I imagine there is other problems, that they go through. So I'm curious how you sort of realize like, okay, this is a problem that I can solve, or this is an actual problem that is worth solving. What was your thought process there? How did you arrive at that as a problem and your solution as well?
Yeah, thank you. That's a very interesting question. So I would say like when we started to addressing the problems, we found out so many problems on it. Like you have the whole entire ecosystem has a challenge in each step of the way. So now you think by from the start you can solve everything, but then when you narrow it down, I mean when you try to see like narrow it down to see what's the actual root cause of those problems. So that's when like you start narrowing it down. You say, for example, in agriculture, there is a problem of production, and there is a problem of post-harvest process. There is a problem of access to market. Then there is a problem of efficiency. So you see, all those are problems that needs to be addressed. But then what we wanted to address first was we wouldn't be in to tell a farmer that we are offering a solution for you to access the market when he doesn't have any produce to sell. You get the point? So now we realize like, let's start from on-farm production. Let's start from the production level and tackle the problem there. So now once we reach to the level where we think that every farmer is producing enough that they should be producing, then we're going to talk about the market. So that's what was our main approach. So now from the production also, there is so many problems. There is, like I said, the access to imports. There is the lack of the knowledge of the modern farming. There is a lack of the mechanization tools. There is irrigation problem. There is a seeds. So there's so many also aspects of the on-farm production. So, but when we interact,
keep going. Sorry, keep going.
When we interacted with the farmers, then we realized that, let's say we start from the irrigation. From the start, we started from irrigation. Yeah. So our main focus was just, let's provide irrigation to those farmers who has inputs and they're not able to have sufficient water for their crop. And then later on, we realized that I can't use irrigation if I don't have inputs. So then that's when we added the aspect of access to inputs from our service. So now you see we have started with solving one problem, but then we realize the problem there is interconnection. So now you add another solution that you can provide. So you start creating what we call a package.
Wow, that's very interesting, because you're saying, as a newbie observing what's happening, you can think, oh, there's just like that one thing that I have to fix, right? And then once you actually try to fix the problem, you realize like, oh my God, it's like a hornet of problems, and they're all connected, and each one bleeds into another. And then, so how, like you said, like ultimately, then you have a package, which is like you're solving multiple problems at once. And of course, there's a core issue, or maybe I don't know if it's core, but there's like a lot of issues interconnected, and you're coming up with a package that is useful for the whole thing. But how how do you walk away from that feeling inspired and not like, oh my god, just this is just so hard, and what stops you from basically saying that this is too difficult, or and there's always of course discussions about funding and how much money it takes to, because you're not solving one problem, you're solving multiple problems at once. Um, how do you stay inspired? How do you not walk away from that experience feeling jaded? Um, how do you continue?
Yeah, thank you, sir. I think the main thing you have to always have in your mind is your why. Your why, like why did you start? Why did you start? Or why matters. So when you have your why, it helps you to keep in check. So every time you hit a roadblock, then you go back to your why. So your why gives you a push. So it tells you like, this is why you started this. So why do you think you should abandon it? So it helps you like every time you meet a challenge, because like there's so many challenges in the way. Every time you hit a hit block, like it knocks you down. Feel like, damn, this is so hard, I should quit. But then when you remember why you started, then it helps you like,
Hello.
to keep pushing. When you have your why, that's why entrepreneurs should have the why.
So Fabrice, what is your why? How do you
Yes,
stay? What
thank
is
you.
it?
So then the why that keep us every time pushing. I tell you a bit of a small story. Like when we were doing like a secondary research, like going to the field, we met a certain farmer who, I think it was in the Rubavu district. So he gave us a tour of the farm. So and then he showed us like a certain plot of land that was already drying. So you could see the crop that are dead. So he told us like the amount of money he put in, the amount of energy he put in, and then he realized like the rain didn't come. So due to the insufficient rain, he's going to lose everything with that season. So imagine, I give you a context just so that you understand the problem. Imagine, for example, you work for, if you are an employee for someone, you work for full 4 months, every day going to work, and then you're gonna get your salary by the end of 4 months, and then you realize by then you're not gonna have anything at all, despite all the effort, everything you've put on. And it was so disheartening. So there's nothing you can tell that farmer that what can you do? There's no advice you can give them. There is not any alternative they have. So then to realize like it should matter to everyone that if every time we go to the market we buy food, we should also think about the effort and the energy the farmers put in to make sure that they have a crop and they have a yield and they're able to bring this product to the market so we can have something to consume. And then their ask to us is to help them to make that process as much easier as for them. Then that's where we got our strong why. Our why is to make sure every farmer on farm production is able to have access to the quality inputs they seek. So quality inputs, quality seeds include the fertilizers, mechanization tools, irrigation, and other facilities they can have to make sure the production is efficient.
Wow. So how do you accomplish all of that? It seems very, very challenging to do it in actual practice, right? It's one thing to wish for that to happen, right? It's one thing, I think, from the example you just gave, for example, right? Like anybody listening to this would probably say, yeah, I wish that farmer to, for the next season, to be able to like not lose crops and all the energy they put in for their yield to just be basically nothing at the end. How do you step in and then make that all that happen for them? Hello? Sorry.
Yeah, I can hear you. I think we had some network issues, small network issues.
Did you hear my question?
You can repeat the question for
Yeah. Basically, I was asking, right, like the example you just gave me of this farmer who puts in so much effort to get a yield at the end, right? Make some money or feed their family, whatever their reason for, you know, doing all of that work was. But then ultimately they don't get anything in return, and then how heartbreaking that story is. So I'm basically asking, how do you step in and help that farmer? What do you do?
yeah, thank you very much. So like that's when we put solution like together. So what we do basically, okay, as a company, of course, like we can, for now, we can't solve every farmer's problems. It's a journey. It's a journey we have started. Hopefully, people will join us within the journey, and so on, so that we keep going. So mainly, like we provide two main services. So one is the input purchase facilitation. So if a farmer needs a certain input, like a seeds, particular seeds, so we facilitate the purchase to make sure those, and also make sure those inputs are delivered to the farmer on the field. So, and then we're able to save them the transportation cost to come to look for the inputs in Kigali. Probably they won't even find it on market, because for us, we go extra mile to make sure those inputs are available and it is delivered to a farmer.
So do you purchase the seed yourself, or do they pay it and you just deliver?
Also, mainly like there is two options. They can choose to pay at the end of the season. They can choose to pay upfront.
Okay, but they pay either way.
Yeah, they pay either way. So, and then second is to provide irrigation. So irrigation service, the way we provide it, we buy equipment, we give it to our agents on field, who then provide those irrigation to the farmers when the farmers need it. So if you need the water on your crop, there is a contact person nearby you can just call, and he brings the equipment and irrigates the farmland for you.
Do they pay for those services, the farmer?
Yes, they do.
So you basically make it easier for them to do what they need to do to get a yield at the end by providing seed and by providing irrigation services. Wow, that's very, very cool. So just looking specifically with the irrigation services that you provide, how did you get started, like getting all the resources needed to actually have somebody on call? Well, two questions: how many farmers do you work with? Because they can be, in my head, I'm like, they can be anywhere in the country, right? And you need to sort of position yourself to have those specific tools available for those farmers all over the country. But I imagine maybe you'll provide more insight on where they actually are located. And also just getting that equipment here. How hard was that? How much did that take to put in position? There's a few questions in there. Hello.
I think you support farmers.
Can you hear me?
Can
Do
you
you
hear
hear the
me right now?
questions? Yeah, I can.
Yeah, I heard you. Yeah, so I was saying like for now we have around 250 farmers, mainly located in the east and southern province. So the equipment was acquired like through grants we received and award. So it's actually a bit expensive. So
You
like
received
that's why
grants,
we
you
are not
said?
a
Sorry,
typical
you were
company. We are
breaking.
more for social. Yeah, can you hear me properly now?
Did you say receive grants for the equipment?
Yes.
Okay, from? It's like a grant you apply for?
Yes, it's a grant you applied for.
Okay.
So mainly like that's why we are mostly like we are social enterprise. We are not a typical company because when we finance this irrigation equipment, our intent is not necessarily like to make a profit, because it takes 2 years to pay off, and you may know it's a high risk product that may not necessarily give you the return you anticipated. So, but the whole idea is to make sure those equipment are able to maintain themselves. So then, so what we do is like we give those equipment to the agents, and then those agents provide irrigation to the farmers.
Okay, and they're all kind of like centralized in either the south or the east, I think is mentioned. So it makes it easier for you to like have sort of two stations that are on call for those farmers to utilize.
Yes.
That's a really good plan. So my other question would be the pandemic, right? COVID. How has that affected your work?
Pandemic. It was a pandemic.
Yeah,
So I think like So I think the main pandemic came in a very wrong time on us, because like we were fully prepared to roll out more systems, and I think it was March last year when they announced the lockdown in Rwanda, the first lockdown in Rwanda. So I think we are already fully prepared. We've recruited cooperatives to start working with. The timeline was to get the equipment and make sure those farmers have the equipment. Now the lockdown kicks in. So now the first aspect, of course, it killed our timeline and plan we had. And the second thing is like financially, now we had to think about the priorities. So do you buy the equipment and without knowing if you're gonna have employees' salaries for the next month and the following month? So now you are left in that dilemma. So the aspect of doing capex was a bit put on hold, and we focus on solving the internal affairs, making sure all the staff are well and are fully covered for their basic needs and everything. So that's like the main impact the pandemic had on us. It was like, in first, we are not able to deliver on time the pending contract we are about to have with cooperatives. And secondly, it was financially, it was a burden on us, as it was not something we have anticipated.
And what's your experience working in cooperatives?
Sorry?
What has been your experience working with the cooperatives, like you're just saying? I don't know if you've already worked with them or about to.
So there are like two aspects of working with cooperatives. So first, you have to be a patient person, because it takes time for them to make a decision. as they work as a cooperatives, and therefore they make a decision as a cooperative. So you might not have that quick response as you want. So the second thing is it's a advantage for you because they're organized. So you know for sure if they agree with something, it's a more for corporate binding. I know it is like a kind of institution that I'm having a contract with. So there is a binding terms in terms of payment. So it provides securities for the company to work with cooperatives than even individual farmers, because individual farmers may default. So there's nothing you can do about it. So if they default, then there is nothing. To be honest, there's nothing you can do. Even if you take them to court, it's just yeah. So but when you are working with cooperatives, something we realize, some of those cooperatives first, they have some kind of assets. Second thing is they're organized. Usually they have money. So if we are about to purchase something, they make a contribution with individuals and they're able to purchase something. So I think it is like it has advantage and disadvantage, but when you are a company and you want to make sure like you have a minimum list, you will go with cooperative.
Thank you. So I'm going to ask you just for a few career tips for some of our viewers who are still in college. What advice would you give to new graduates who are about to join the job market, specifically in agriculture?
You are breaking.
I was asking, I'm going to ask you for a few career tips for someone who's a seasoned sort of professional. What advice would you give to new graduates who are about to join the job market, specifically in the field of agriculture?
Career tips. I'm still also building my career, by the way. So, but anyway, I think the first tip is to make sure like you're open to learn. So most of the things, like when you're coming out of university, you think you have learned enough and you are ready to go to work, and you are like, you feel like a bit of I don't know how to call it. It's like, but then you feel like you already know what you are doing. So one of the tips that I can give and I keep emphasis on is to be open to learn. So when you're open to learn, it doesn't matter of the circumstances you meet in a certain company, and if you choose to go for employment in the produce of a certain company into agriculture, or you choose to venture into entrepreneurship and you start your own venture, you're gonna have so many things that you have never met before, or you are not even aware they exist. So when you have that attitude to learn, it helps you to be able to adapt quickly with those things. If you came in, for example, in Rwanda, you realize, for example, start working with farmers. You went to the field once, you organize the training only, and then going to train should just sleep. But then, like when you're open to learn, you talk to those farmers, you ask, when and how do you think you can have so many farmers attend this? You realize, for example, there's a certain day they meet, and you can capture into that. So you see, for example, it's not like you are coming to dialect or to set how things should go. Is for you to come and fit in the system. So you have to find a way to fit in, and the only way you can fit in is when you are open to learn.
That's very true. My second question is, what are challenges faced by you engaging in agriculture that you've noticed, especially as part of being in the youth, but also what some of your challenges were joining the field?
Honestly speaking, dealing with farmers is already a challenge.
It is.
Because the main challenge is a farmer is a person you should treat with respect and with patience, because they might be educated, they might not be educated, but either way, they know what they are doing. So it's like for someone who has been farming for 20 years and 25 years, to tell them how they should now change the entire farming method they use. It's a step by step. It's a challenge. So you have first to know how to communicate with them, how to make to be patient with them, to understand why, if you are offering a solution, if you are addressing a problem, why should matter to them. Because sometimes the adaptation might not be as quick as you expect. So that's the challenge. So adaptation, if you are offering a solution on the market, especially in a market that deals with farmers, it takes time and you have to be patient with it. Another challenge is not all farmers are organized. If you're dealing with cooperatives, well and good, you have a kind of structure that you can follow. But if you start dealing with individual farmers, you find out it is more complex and it is not organized. So one farmer has his own way, another farmer has his own way. So you have to find a balance of how to deal with all those individual farmers.
So you've been doing this for a couple of years. How confident are you when you approach an individual farmer that you'll be able to convince them that you can help them? Or yeah, essentially, how confident are you? Scale from 0 to 10.
Honestly, I can't be confident with dealing with individual farmers because at any certain time they can default. You have to know that in your mind. In terms of that's why we have like a more, our first target customer is not individual farmers, it's rather cooperatives, because if you're dealing with cooperatives, then you are settled kind of, right? But when you start dealing with individual farmers, which we have been, we don't only work with cooperatives, some of individual farmers we work with them. It's always a constant learning, because every individual farmer is gonna deal with them independently. You're gonna have a certain terms with these farmers that will not be the same with another farmers, so on. So you have to keep changing and make sure you have an inclusive environment for those farmers.
Well, that's interesting. I'm wondering, is there any, because ultimately, right, like an organization like Nile Farms, if you approach a farmer, it's for their own benefit. You're trying to help them. But there's all these little just barriers that make it really difficult for you to be able to communicate to the farmer. Like, these are all the ways that I can improve your yield and all these other factors. Are there any programs or things that we can do to help the farmers sort of realize the importance of organizations such as our farms, or what can people do to support farmers when they're resistant, essentially?
I think it's training. Training is constant training. So you see, when farmers are interacting with those trainings, so that's why we have also put in place a certain aspect of training into our organization. So the main focus of those training is to do the marketing. So it helps us in the marketing, it helps us to make farmers understand and be aware why the solution we want to provide them matters. It helps also to change the mindset around the farmers. So I think like trainings and mainly like trainings, and make sure constant getting involving and sending forms, because like farmers are not like other people where you have a certain aspect of comes that goes to social medias and the overcrowded social medias, and they're able to learn from those posts and everything. So it requires for you to go and visit them, interact with them. So constant interaction and trainings, I think that it can help to change the mindset of the farmers in long run.
What do you see as the future of agriculture in Rwanda? Hello?
You are breaking.
I asked, what do you see as the future of agriculture in Rwanda? It's a loaded question.
I think the future is interesting. The future is promising. It's really promising because if you see the amount of the funds allocation, if you see the enthusiasts within the agripreneurs in the ecosystem, you can see how the farmers are eager to use the new technologies and to adapt to new technologies, and also the government has put in place providing certain infrastructures that are can be used by a really promising ecosystem. There is so many benefits.
Well, Fabrice, thank you so much for joining us today. This is the end of the call. It's been a delight listening to all the challenges that the farmers are going through and what Nile Farms is doing to be able to help by providing seed material that they need to plant crops and providing irrigation services, all your efforts in working with cooperatives and helping farmers basically by providing training to understand what their needs are and how to meet them. I think you're doing incredible work to support Rwandan agriculture, and I hope that some of our students who will be watching this can learn something from you. Do you have I don't know, a Twitter, something that they can, or even some way for people to reach you if they ever need to? Or website.
Yeah, thank you very much.
Mm.
Thank you very much for having me. So our website is nilefarm.co.com. And we have also the Twitter handle of Nile Farms. We have a Facebook page, Nile Farms, Instagram page, Nile Farms. You can also reach me personally. It's fine. I'm always available.
Oh.
I think you have tagged me, or have tagged me in a post, so they can just follow me. It's fine. And if there is any questions, I'm happy to provide answers as much as I can.
That's really good. Thank you so much again for joining us today.
Thank you. Thank you very much for having me.
Have a good night. Bye.
Cheers. Okay.
Cheers. Yeah.